to my tutorial for my new rose template. It's an extra large template and it's quite large. I'm going to keep this hexagon base right here. I have a little trouble with keeping the flowers usually in the frame, so this will help me figure out where the center of the frame is, and also because it's such a large flower, it needs to stay there, else it will probably be pulled towards here and it'll be less out of the frame. So to get started, here are all my petals. So I have one 8-inch hexagon. I have 4 sets of outer petals. They are 6 petals each. So I have a hexagon, 6 sides, so 6 petals each. I have 8 pieces of a what I'll build the rosebud. So 8 of these and 8 of this for the rosebud in the center. So I will go ahead and get started. These will be done in 2 stages, and I'll show you how I do it. But what I like to do first is start curling my petals. So I like to do them 2 at a time, sometimes 3 at a time. So I just need to curl the edge of the flowers, curl them in. And then this is also for the rosebud. Okay, I'll set these aside. And so these are the outer petals. What I'd like to do for these is curl the edges just like I did with the rosebud pieces, but with these it's a little harder, even with my bone folder, to curl the edges or the sides because the sheet is so large, or the petal is so large. So if you want to, you can curl it around a glue stick or something rod shaped, but I will continue to use the bone folder. Anything rod, or you can roll around a round shape would work. It's just with these large petals, it's really hard to hold the petal and curl the same way, but it can be done. They just need a little bit of a curl too, so it doesn't need to be perfect or anything like that. It just gives the petals more of a realistic look when you do this. Okay, and then one last petal shape. The smallest one is always the easiest. Alright, that will be the last time using this bone folder, so I'll set it aside. The next thing you should do is have a pair of scissors ready. So I'm going to separate them into different petal shapes. So the next thing is taking your pair of scissors and cutting a slit in the middle of the petals. about 2.5 inches for the biggest petal. And then I just cut a slightly shorter slit for the smaller petals. Okay, and then I'm going to start gluing. So what I want to do is I want the petals to fold outward like this, and so I want to glue them this way. So add a little bit of glue here. And because it's a large rose, I want it to sit upright. I want to fold it a lot more, how would I say, like the left piece to the right piece a lot more, so that it sits upright even more. If I did not do that and I just glued it so that it was just a little overlapping, the petal would lay flatter, and that would be fine too if you want a more flat rose. It would also make it a more larger rose in terms of width, but I want at least the inner petals to be more upright. So I'm going to go ahead and finish gluing. You would glue all of these petals the same. Alright, so all these petals are done. I'm going to set them aside and start with the rosebud piece first. So I will move this out of the way so it's easier to see, but I'll move these out of the way first. So with the rosebud piece, you have 8 in the center and then 8 outer petals. And what you want to do with this is you want to add a line of glue and then connect 2 pieces together about 1/2 inch overlapping. And then what I want to do is I want them to crisscross, sort of like a cross shape, so, and glue them together. Just add a little glue there. Right, so now I have 2 of these. I'll start with one. And so what I'll do is the first piece, I'll add a little bit of glue in the inner part of the curled petal. And then I'll take it and shape the very first petal. So just hold it there. You want to make sure that you let the glue dry enough so that it doesn't come apart. And then the next petal, I'll add glue here on the sides. And then I'll fold this up, and then over that first petal. So for the rosebud, all you want to have it so that it looks like there's a lot of layers in the middle. So the rest of the petals will just be sort of overlapping that rosebud center to give it layers. And so you can shape this in any way you want. You can have it tighter or not as tight so that there's space in between. I usually like to have the first piece close together and then build space in the second layer of this rosebud. So I'll show you what I mean. So this in the middle is sort of tight, the way that I've wrapped the petals. So with these, I want it to be a little farther away, so there's more space here. That's your rosebud center. I want to add a few petals to it. And I'll glue them on the bottom. This is what the bottom of the rosebud center looks like. So I have 8 pieces here. So I glue to the bottom here, and I add it to about halfway in the middle. So there's about a 1/4 inch space in the middle. You can glue them closer together, these 2 stems, or farther apart. It depends on how you want the petals to look when you're gluing them to the center. So if you get it closer together, these won't fall that much taller than the rosebud center. If you want it farther away, it would be taller. So I add glue to the sides, and what I'll do is I'll take my index finger, and hold here, while my thumb and my middle finger will push, and then I'll push down with my index finger, and then I'll use my other fingers to guide the petal, the outer part of the petals, towards the center, the rosebud center. So then I'll turn it around so that you can see how it looks. It just gives it a little bit of a shape. And we'll do that the same on the other side. So a line of glue on the sides. And I'll use my index finger to push down, while my other fingers just push towards the rosebud center. And I'll just hold there for a few seconds while the glue cools down. Sometimes it can pull apart quite easily, so holding it and making sure it stays just ensures that it won't come up as easily. So I want to do that again with another 2 petals. Add glue to the sides. so I have 4 petals left. What I want to do is put these petals in between the other petals. So in some sense it'll be on the corner, so if you look at the square they'll be glued in the corners. And because they're in the corners, I want to get above that corner space. I will glue them almost an inch apart. So an inch apart, roughly. What I mean is I just want, when I pull this petal up, that it can, if I glued them too close to the center, it would be too short compared to these petals. So about an inch apart for there. The reason why I don't add square bases on the bottom on these petals as stems is I just find that it's a waste of paper. And if you just know, if you practice these flowers and know where to glue them, then you can save yourself a lot of paper. And I just find that I can trace and cut more flowers out of a single sheet of paper if I conserve that amount that would be added to the stem and cut out more petals per sheet. And I just don't like wasting paper so much, so that is why my stems are so tiny compared to any other templates out there that I've seen. Two last outer petals for this rosebud. Remember, about an inch apart there. Make sure the glue holds. Glue on the sides, a line of glue. I usually hold the middle of the center of the rose. Alright, so this is the rosebud center. I'm going to set it off to the side. And I'm going to get that hexagon piece. So hopefully it all fits within frame. This is quite a large flower. But I separate my petals into the respective 4 piles. And so I'm going to end up doing the smaller petals last, so I'm going to set them aside here, and I'll grab them later. So I want to start with the largest petal. If you've seen any of my other videos, this process is just similar in building the flower. I want to add glue to the bottom petal and then glue it to the hexagon. Alright, so then the process is the same with all the other petals. You just glue in between the other petals. So you'll put your next layer of petals in between the first set. So at this stage, you may be able to put the petal in, the rosebud in, and it'll be fine. I think I want to add, let me see if it'll work. I want to add one more layer of petals. You notice I glued my petals quite tightly together. If you had given less space, you probably would only need three layers of petals instead of 4 like I did. And then the last thing is that flower center. I would just need to glue that in. So building from the outside, these petals saves you from having to shape it from middle outwards. I want to make sure that's nice and snug in there. But this is my large rose template. Thanks for watching.